In the early 2000s, Italy's bear population was dwindling. Through loss of habitat and conflict with humans, their numbers were rapidly declining. But conservationists were determined to bring Italy's Eurasian brown bears back from the brink. This mission was called Project Life Ursus. The project involved introducing bears into Italy's countryside once more in an effort to build their numbers back up. Eurasian brown bears, also known as European brown bears or common brown bears, are a subspecies of brown bear. There are thought to be 14,000 of them in Europe, the majority being in Romania, and more than 100,000 are present in Russia. The males can weigh up to 300 kilograms, or 660 pounds, and the females up to 250 kilograms, or 550 pounds. In the wild, they have a lifespan of 20 to 30 years. JJ4 is a female brown bear that was born near the city of Trento in northern Italy. Her parents were two bears introduced to the area from Slovenia. Their reintroduction program was going well. The bear population rose to an estimated 100 individuals in Italy's northern regions of South Tyrol and Trentino and the southern region of Abruzzo. But where there are bears and people, there are likely to be close encounters. With their rising numbers in Italy, there have been 7 attacks on humans in the past 20 years. None of these has been fatal until now. JJ4 had become bold and aggressive. She saw any intruders into her habitat as a threat, and rather than run away from people, she was more likely to run towards them. This was likely a natural response to protecting her offspring. In June 2020, father and son Fabio and Christian Miseroni were hiking in Mount Peller in Trentino. The route up the mountain is popular with walking enthusiasts. The large open meadows are bordered by evergreen forests. From the summit of the mountain, you can see across the green wilderness with the backdrop of the mountain ranges. As they were walking along one of the trails, a bear suddenly jumped in front of Fabio and Christian. It had taken them completely by surprise, or perhaps it was the other way around. Either way, the bear was not intimidated by the father and son duo and pounced on 28-year-old Christian. It bit into his leg as he cried out. Immediately, 59-year-old Fabio jumped onto the bear's back in an attempt to rescue his son. Clinging onto the bear with all his might, enraged it, and the bear took one swipe at him with its giant paw. The single swipe knocked Fabio to the ground and broke his leg in 3 separate places. He cried out in pain. Christian yelled at the bear and jumped up and down in a desperate attempt to scare it away. Luckily for the shaken pair, it worked, and the bear ran off into the woods. But that wouldn't be the last of JJ4. Following that attack, Trentino Governor Maurizio Fugatti signed a cull order for the bear. Officials gathered DNA from saliva and fur gathered from the men's wounds and at the attack site and set about hunting for the bear. They needed to make sure that they trapped and killed the correct bear. Word of the bear's imminent death spread like wildfire. Animal rights activists protested to stop the kill. The WWF said that the bear was likely a mother protecting her cubs, and within a few days, 20,000 signatures had been collected to stop the kill order. Even Italy's environment minister opposed the sentencing. Eventually, it was agreed that the bear should not be harmed. Instead, wildlife officials attached a radio collar to her so that they could keep track of her movements and keep an eye out for any unusual behavior. This tactic seemed to work well until the batteries on the radio collar ran out. Fast forward just 3 years, and JJ4 attacked again. This time, the victim wasn't so lucky. Her whereabouts had gone unnoticed as her collar stopped transmitting a signal. In early April 2023, 26-year-old Andrea Papi told his mother he loved her and that he would see her for dinner. Those were his final words to her. He left the house in his running gear and headed out for an evening trail run. He left his dog behind, a decision that may have cost him his life. It was like any other day, any other run. He was a regular in the Brenta Dolomites. He loved running in the Val de Sol, a stunning valley bordered by majestic mountains, glaciers, and forests. Although the scenery is stunning, it is also prime bear habitat. JJ4 lived there. She now had 3 cubs, which were fully weaned, but they still stayed together as a tight family unit until they were completely independent. As Andrea rounded a blind bend on one of his usual running routes, he suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. There, standing on the trail, was JJ4. Her cubs were in the scrub, foraging for berries. Andrea had startled the mother bear. He had taken her by surprise, and she was protective of her young. This is the worst situation to be in when confronted by a brown bear. Immediately, she lowered her head to the ground and ran at him. Andrea didn't have time to react. She floored him with one swipe of her paw, and he tried to protect his head and neck as she launched her attack. He could feel her sharp claws digging into his skin. He could feel her teeth piercing his flesh. The attack was rapid and brutal. She was incredibly powerful. She tore at Andrea's clothes, ripping them from his body. Andrea scrabbled to his feet and tried to make a break for it, but the bear wasn't letting him get away. He managed to grab a branch from the ground to defend himself. He swiped at the bear as she came for him again. The pain in his legs was searing through his body by now, the blood dripping from the open wounds on his arms, staining the branch he clung to. As the bear launched itself at him once more, Andrea fell to the ground. When he didn't show up for dinner that evening, his girlfriend, Alessia Gregori, grew worried. She contacted local authorities, and they mounted a search. She knew where to direct them. She knew the routes that Andrea took when he went running. Not returning after a run was out of character. She knew something was wrong. It didn't take long for law enforcement to find Andrea. On one of the woodland paths, they found a trail of blood and torn clothing. As they followed the trail, they rounded a blind bend. There, lying in the middle of the path, was Andrea. He lay motionless on the ground, a bloodied tree branch by his side. The wounds he had suffered were consistent with a bear attack. The attack likely lasted less than a few minutes, but the sheer power and force inflicted by the bear were fatal. Andrea's family were truly heartbroken that they had lost someone so young. He had his whole life ahead of him. His passion for the great outdoors and keeping fit and healthy had ultimately cost him his life. His attack was the first fatal one ever reported in Italy, but that number is likely to change as the protected species continues to thrive. When DNA analysis taken from evidence found at the site and from Andrea's wounds came back, officials were shocked. The DNA matched that of JJ4, the bear who had attacked before. Once more, the debate whether to euthanize a problem bear or not started up again. Wildlife officials and local government were torn. Who should be protected? People who venture out to enjoy nature, or the bears that conservationists have fought so hard to reinstate? Officials trapped the bear, enticing her into a tube trap with fruit. When they found the 17-year-old JJ4, her 3 cubs remained by her side. She had been protecting them, doing what came naturally to her. It was instinct. Some have suggested that she should be removed from the area and taken to a bear reserve either in Italy or abroad. At the time of making this video, the decision has yet to be made. Is she becoming bold and fearless when it comes to humans? Will she continue to attack? Or has she simply been doing what nature intended, protecting her cubs? Either way, Andrea Papi was the second person to be mauled by the aggressive bear, this time resulting in his terrifying final affliction.